just do it, it'll turn out okay. And welcome to Talking Time with Caffeine and our brand new mini series.
Howdy, howdy. Sorry, not sure how you want me to introduce myself.
Oh, so have, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, fair enough. Well, for anyone who doesn't know me, I am Doc Dino. I am a paleontologist in training who really likes dinosaurs and talking about dinosaurs. And that's gonna be the main topic of this little series we'll be starting.
Yep. Yep. As you guys may know, I have been doing a little series about our different clades of animals and plants and stuff. But today we are going to be talking, at least for some are still alive. Most of these creatures are on these series clades have unfortunately bit the bullet.
Yeah, like 99% of life on Earth.
So, real fast, how did you come about your name?
Doc Dino? Well, anyone who's been in the creation versus, I guess, science sphere for a while probably recognizes the name. It is a parody of Kent Hovind's, his moniker. Uh, I studied German back in college and still speak a little bit of it, though not as much as I would like. So I figured, oh, I'll take a little German spin on it. And,
So, so
yeah.
unlike Kenny, are you a real doctor?
No, but I do have a bachelor's degree,
So that's
and I
I think that's
am
I think that's more.
thinking of going back to college, but not set in stone yet.
So all right. So this is more like a parody and not like he claims.
Yes, it's a parody slash stage name. I am not a real doctor, and I will not give medical advice beyond very basic stuff, which I can do a bit of because my mom was a CNA and I have first aid training, but yeah. I am not a doctor. It is a stage name, which is why most of the time these days I shorten it to just Doc.
Understandable. But all right, let's get this party started. So, what made you before you start? Actually, before you start, what made you besides the parody of Kenny? What made you interested in dinosaurs?
Oh, jeez, where to start? Uh, well, when I was at the ripe old age of 2 years old, uh, I started getting interested in science. Like, I was interested by rocks and fossils and, well, dinosaurs. Anytime, there was a big dino boom in the 90s and early 2000s, fueled by Jurassic Park,
I remember.
and I grew up in that. So dinosaurs were everywhere, and I really liked them. I thought they were neat. They weren't like anything else I'd ever seen. Uh, and then one day when I was either 3 or 4 years old, I had a very lazy babysitter who, rather than, watch me, decided to just play Jurassic Park for this very young child and let it entertain him while she went off to do laundry. And that basically set in stone what I wanted to do.
Nice. I am old. I was already 13 or 12 or 13 when the first Jurassic Park movie came out.
Yeah, I was not born yet when the first movie came out. I think I was born uh yeah, I was born before the third, but I didn't see that until much later.
I was I was born before the big discovery of the asteroid.
Oh, uh, wasn't that in the late 80s?
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s. So yeah, I have dinosaur books pre that discovery when different
Oh, I
different
grew up with a lot of those.
yeah when different things were things where they talked about uh, sauropods and rivers and stuff.
Um, actually, funny thing, before they discovered the impact crater in the Yucatan Peninsula, there was an idea floating around that it might have been a meteorite that hit Iowa, which is the state I live in, that might have killed the dinosaurs.
It also has the Dimetrodon in the book too, so you know how old that book is.
Well, to
Book
be
about
fair,
dinosaurs.
there's still books that come out nowadays that say that it was a dinosaur, which, for the record, not, but what can you do?
Yeah, more closely laid to us than the actual dinos,
Yeah, synapsids were weird.
and they're still around. Because that's what we are.
Yeah.
But
Ooh.
anyways,
Yep. Go ahead.
from the synapsid side of the amniotic tree over to the diapsid surapsid side of the family tree.
Yes,
But
that is actually where our little slideshow begins,
yep.
sort of.
Right. So we are starting from where the split, or the crocodiles went one way, and our targets went the other way.
Yes. Uh, so, for anyone who's not familiar, once vertebrates crawled up on the land, they split into three major types. You have anapsids, which just have a whole solid skull, and I'm not sure if we have. I don't know if we have any of them alive today, actually. We have synapsids, which have one hole in the skull. Let's see. Oh, hey, Breeze here, Hive Size. She can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the hole was behind where we have our ear hole, where humans have their ear holes. It's basically a muscle attachment point, and it's called a fenestra. That's just basically Latin for window. And then there are diapsids, which have two. And you can say either synapsid or synapsid. I just say synapsid.
Okay, breathe the Borg.
What was that?
It's a joke. Breeze, I'm watching from both channels.
I see. I see. Oh yeah. Humans actually no longer have temporal fenestra because it was covered by a window of bone. Um,
But, but it's not like anything important. What's the big deal if a hole where our brain is? Not a big deal at
what was
all.
that?
I was making a joke. What's the big deal with
Oh,
a hole where our brain is?
yeah. At least for some people. Um, I'm sharing an image if you wouldn't mind popping it up on screen.
Oh, okay. All right.
Uh, I like to add visuals. So yeah, here's a pretty basic diagram. Bunch of identical skulls, just for ease of comparison. But you can see the synapsids. They have a hole right here. Diapsids have a hole right here. Here's another synapsid skull, and this is I I think that's Dimetrodon, but it could be another synapsid. You can very easily see the big hole right back here.
Yeah, it's fun.
And
It's funny. Not
oh,
funny, but for the longest time, I thought synapses and diapses split at the same place, but apparently it was synapses and sauropsids, and then diapses that appear later on until in the sauropsid line, clade line.
yeah,
Down.
it's complicated. Honestly, when the farther you go back in time, the more everything starts to look the same. Uh, and the sad thing is, we also just don't have a ton of rocks from I'd say before the Mesozoic, honestly.
Yeah.
At least not at the surface.
If anything, I was, if possible, I know it's not possible. I wish we could get some DNA from some of these fossils. That way, we could either confirm our morphology is right, or we find out, oh, wow, we were way off on this on placing these trees here. We were.
That that would be really nice, but sadly, DNA and most other
Doesn't
like
last that long.
proteins, they just don't last very long. I think the window for protein preservation was pushed back last year, though. Um, ooh, sorry, I just found a even better graphic to illustrate synapsids and diapsids. Um, there was research that came out about a tooth of a Paranthropus, which had sequenceable proteins remaining. And I think that's about 2.5 million years old.
Mm.
Yeah, here's just a better example of synapsids and diapsids. A lot of diapsids, they have one hole on the side and one hole closer to the top. Birds are actually another group that have closed up their holes. So even though they are diapsids, they don't look like it anymore.
And well, also, so far did dinosaurs get three holes? I think
Um,
I might be misremembering more.
some I don't know if some get a third. I know most dinosaurs have the two at the very least.
Maybe I might be misremembering what someone said one time.
Sorry. I'll go ahead and if we. Yep, there we go. Oh, it just pops right back up. Uh, well, here's the presentation again, and
I,
once you have your diapsids, they split apart even more. They split into, in particular, two major groups: Lepidosaurs, which are like lizards, most lizards, and snakes.
and one other branch. I forget. I can't can never pronounce his name.
I think it's the group that Tuatara belonged to.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah. Um, or is the Tuatara a Lepidosaur?
No, I think. Oh, I
I know the Tuatara is unique compared
yeah,
to other lizards.
but yeah, yeah. From what I remember, it's a sister branch to Lepidosaurus. But the snakes aren't. They are within the Lepidosaurs.
Yep, they're just scaleless reptiles. Or sorry, it's not scaleless. Jeez, legless. Though there are scaleless reptiles.
But we are
Uh,
today. We are talking about the other side of their family tree.
yes. Today we are talking about the big branch, the one everybody knows, the big showy one. Archosaurs. Archosaurs are the group to which dinosaurs belong and living crocodilians. But they used to be much, much more diverse in the past. They used to have, well, pterosaurs are archosaurs and actually are closer related to dinosaurs than crocodilians are. Um, but they all share a certain set of traits. They have an upright posture in comparison to lizards. Alligators are so like, or I should just say crocodilians. Crocodilians do still have a sprawling gait, but they still walk more upright than other reptiles do today.
I'm just glad that the hoofed ones aren't around anymore that chase us down.
Oh yeah, some were alive deep fairly recently, which terrifying. They also have a thecodont dentition, meaning that, like humans, their teeth fit into sockets. A lot of other, well, actually, I think almost all other reptiles and amphibians, when they have teeth, they just grow out of a groove. It's called a pleurodont dentition. Um, Although there is at least one group of non-archosaur reptiles that re-evolved or that evolved thecodont dentition. Any guesses what they are?
Say that again.
There is a group of non-archosaur reptiles that evolved thecodont dentition, so teeth and sockets. Any guess which ones they are?
Uh, the the Komodo dragon one.
Not varanids, but very closely related to them, mosasaurs. Mosasaurs independently derived thecodont dentition, at least in the later groups, which I find fascinating. Um, but all archosaurs also have non-overlapping scales. So if you look at a snake or a lizard, their scales, they overlap. They go over one another. And archosaurs, they don't.
And as
They
you
are each distinct.
and as you get to it and you slide it or not, archosaurs are also the first vertebrates that take to the sky
Yes, they are.
twice.
Hmm. Well,
Only
actually,
only
maybe more.
oh more than once.
Yeah,
Wow.
it appears flight evolved in dinosaurs multiple times.
Oh, nice. Only beaten to the sky by breeze breeze lot by a few hundred
Yes,
million
the
years.
insects. And who knows, maybe some weird amphibian we still haven't found. Um, Anywho, archosaurs also have they have more complex respiratory and circulatory systems than we see in non-archosaurs, and in many cases more complex than we see in mammals too. Even modern crocodilians have a sort of primitive flow-through lung, uh, which is a more simplified version of what birds have. With birds, their respiratory system goes into their bones and through a bunch of sacs in their body to help lighten the load. Uh, Crocodilians don't do that, but that might be because our modern crocodilians are all aquatic ambush specialists. There could have been other crocodilians with a more bird like condition in the past, which would be fascinating. And they also have uh, some specific fenestrae. So, again, windows in the skull. They have one in the mandible and one between the nose and the eye. And that's very easy to see in most dinosaurs. And they have more. There's a lot more. We don't need to go through all of them. um, Hello, Adam. But to cut down on a lot of this tree, boop, there are two major groups of archosaurs. We have the Pseudotsuchians, which are crocodilians and their relatives. And then we have Ornithodyra, though there's another name for them, the Ava metatarsalia, which are dinosaurs and pterosaurs.
Now, on the on the Ava part, are we getting the warm blooded side? Like, going to be warm blooded yet, or that's further down the
Yes,
line?
yes, Ava metatarsalians are, as far as we know, almost all warm-blooded. We have direct evidence for it in I think all of the major groups of dinosaurs, or at, or at least a bunch of them. Um, and we have evidence for it in pterosaurs too. Um, so just to go really quick, go through the distinctions. Pseudotsuchians, almost all of them have osteoderms, bones in the skin, literally what it means for protection. Um, Ornithodyrans do not, at least ancestrally. A lot of them do later on grow osteoderms, but that seems to be an independent thing. Pseudotsuchians also generally have a slower metabolism compared to the hot blooded, frankly, ornithodyrans. Pseudotsuchians are less upright than ornithodyrans, and ornithodyrans, almost all of them have hollow bones. There are some exceptions, such as actually the sauropods on screen. Most of their limb bones are completely solid all the way through, just because they have to be. But a lot of them still have like hollow vertebrae, which is interesting.
Mm.
Yeah. And I figured I'd show some less popular, more weird pseudotsuchians over here on the left. Uh, I just realized it's probably not showing my mouse cursor. Sorry, I'm used to that on StreamYard. Um, we have two here, which are an atosaur, which are a group of herbivorous crocodilomorphs. Um, yeah, they were herbivores. They had a really weird, kind of pig-like face. And a lot of them had really huge spines on their backs.
The other one's the bipedal crocodile. Or
Yes, this is. I think this is Postosuchus, which I saw walking with dinosaurs in your intro earlier. Some people might recognize it from that, although they got a few things wrong.
well, to correct you, that was Walking with Monsters, the prequel.
No, it was in Walking with Dinosaurs. It was in episode 1.
I mean, the one I showed was Walking with Monsters.
Uh,
it was a Dimetrodon and thing.
well, you also showed the Ornithochirus,
I
which
did.
was in Walking with Dinosaurs. Yeah,
I did not.
yeah,
All right.
the Ornithochirus is in there. I think it was towards the end. You showed it like flying through the sky.
Oh, okay. I thought. Sorry, I know what species that was.
It's okay. But anyway, this is Postosuchus, I believe. Again, in it was in Walking with Dinosaurs. There it was portrayed as a very slow moving quadruped, but we now know, and it had actually gone back and forth before this, or before Walking with Dinosaurs, but we now know it was in fact a rather quick moving biped, which is terrifying because this thing is like the size of a modern saltwater crocodile, but it could run you down.
Yeah, imagine that was in the Florida Everglades.
Oh, they probably do very well. Anywho, we aren't focusing on the Pseudotsuchians, at least not yet. Maybe we could do that later. Today, we are focusing on the Ava metatarsalians, which split into the pterosauromorphs and dinosauromorphs. Uh, Now, again, this is the hot-blooded, fast-moving, hollow-boned side of the tree.
All right, so
Um, yeah.
what does the morph mean in these names?
Morph means form. So these, if you break them down, ptero, wing, soar, lizard, form. So these are the lizards, or sorry, These are the lizards with wings, basically. Dinosaur morphs, terrible lizard form. So these are all closer relations to uh, how, there's an official description. I think it's all animals that fit between Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Apatosaurus, and T Rex, and their common ancestor.
Okay.
Something like that. That might be outdated. You probably include birds in there now, actually. But yeah, and pterosauromorphs is, well, basically from the moment they show up in the fossil record, they're already flying. I don't know if we have a fairly complete non-flying pterosaur. Um, Honestly, it seems to be, at least with most animals that evolve to fly, once they are able to at least glide, there is a very strong evolutionary pressure to get better at that very quickly. So within maybe a few 100,000 or million years, you go from like a simple glider or something that hops from tree to tree to full on flyer if the niche is open.
And
Like,
they
we have
perfect.
stuff like flying squirrels and sugar gliders nowadays, but
Yeah.
we also have birds and bats.
But these guys perfected it way before birds were even a thing.
Yes, all the way back in the mid to late Triassic, I believe.
Now, you would say something that if this is my personal opinion here, but if I could go back and if I could go back in time, and get before Owen did, I I I I'd rename dinosaurs the terrible birds or something because that terrible
uh,
lizard thing is
yeah,
like is give gives some creationists so much leeway. Like Mister, I think a chameleon
yeah,
turned into a triceratops person.
yeah. I know who you're. It is annoying when they do that, but I don't know. Honestly, for the time, I feel it's an okay name for the group. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, it translates to terrible, but a more accurate translation is terribly great reptile,
that
which kind of fitting for
yes.
a lot of dinosaurs. Um, and they are reptiles, though Saur or Sauria generally translate. A lot of people translate it to lizard. You can translate it to reptile too.
Okay, well, except for what's the word? The balasaur from the whale side. That's totally way
Uh,
off.
Basilosaurus, yeah. But when it was first found, they thought it was a reptile.
Yeah, it's that first naming first stuck with it forever now thing that we have in science.
uh, yeah, that's true for a lot of things. Not true for everything, though. In
Oh,
fact, T Rex is an exception to the rule. And Apatosaurus, too, I think. Um, I forget what it is exactly, but there is another name that T Rex should have, but Tyrannosaurus Rex is such a fitting name, and it became so widespread and so popular that scientists basically decided, yeah, you know what, we have an exception here. This
of
name
cour-
takes precedence.
yeah, of course with the Apatosaurus Brontosaurus thing, they actually found got one that became a Brontosaurus. And,
Yes. Um, I'm actually referring to something different with Apatosaurus, though.
uh,
It's had a few naming issues in the past. Um, there is another name that could be valid for the animal, which is Atlantosaurus, which I think is still pretty freaking cool.
yeah,
Um, but by the time that was discovered, that it had been called that, Apatosaurus was already everywhere and super iconic. So we just stuck with Apatosaurus. Anywho, when it comes to distinguishing your Avametatarsalia, there are a few major things that distinguish at least early pterosaurs from early dinosaurs. Uh, as far as we know, all pterosaurs were quadrupedal, with very long forelimbs. Yes, Dinosaurus imperiosus. Although, if I recall, that name was published in the same publication that named Tyrannosaurus rex. It was just later on in the publication.
Also, I think um didn't no, they still think that, but I remember a few years ago. I don't remember, but they thought a lot of different dinosaur uh, species were actually different like ages of the same dinosaur. For what? What didn't
Uh,
they?
yes, that was a thing that started in the 80s, but it had a big bump in the late 2000s. Excuse me. Some of that is held true, some of it hasn't.
Okay.
There are three big examples. For T Rex, there was a smaller tyrannosaur found in the same formation that some people decided to name Nanotyrannus. But as we found more fossils and more fossils of other tyrannosaurids, it became pretty clear that they were a lot more lightly built when they were younger. And then they grew up into the big, terrifying powerhouses. And following that growth curve, along with frankly, just a lot of anatomy, a lot of anatomical details, became pretty clear that Nanotyrannus was just a younger T Rex. Um, some people still dispute that, but it's generally accepted by the scientific community. Another one was put forward about Triceratops and Torosaurus, which is another ceratopsian that lived in roughly the same place at the same time, um, but had big holes in its frill and a lot bigger frill than Triceratops did. It was said that Torosaurus might be the older version of Triceratops. However, the main paper that brought that forward had, from what I've heard, a few major errors in its math. Um, and since then, like, we found a baby Torosaurus. So, uh, a lot more research has been done. Again, we found not a big, like a little Torosaurus, and it just does not seem to be borne out, especially since we also have skeletally mature Triceratops. And then the last one was Pachycephalosaurus, which I have heard conflicting things about. Um, from what I've heard, well, first, there were two other Pachycephalosaurs that were hypothesized to be younger versions. Those are Stygimoloch and Dracorex, both of which excellent names. Um, from what I have heard, and I will just say this is mostly from uh, a YouTube channel run by a bunch of paleontologists. So they're in the field. Their opinion is that Dracorex might be a younger form of Pachycephalosaurus, but Stygimoloch appears to be distinct.
Mm,
But it could be more complex than that.
most
Uh,
things are.
yeah. But it was at the very least a fair hypothesis because, again, we find them in the same places at the same time. And Stygimoloch and Dracorex are smaller than Pachycephalosaurus. And you can see what appears to be a transition between smaller and larger individuals. Sometimes that holds true in paleontology, sometimes it doesn't. It'd be a lot easier if we could just bring them back to life and watch them grow up.
Just don't put them in a park for an audience.
I mean, you can just put them in a 40-foot concrete pit. That's all you gotta do. Or even a 20-foot concrete pit. Like, they can't get out of that. Like, Jurassic
But
Park, I love it. It's a great movie. It's a fun story. But,
uh,
they could have been so much smarter.
but fast. We're gonna rant about that. I think even then they knew, but I know they did it for storylines. But come on, um, uh, frog DNA. Um, one, birds were closer. They could have done that. Crocodiles were closer. Lizards were closer. Hell, even mammals were closer DNA than frogs are to dinosaurs. To replace, to replace their DNA in.
Yes, that's fair. Um, there are a few reasons why frog DNA was chosen. First, I should specify that in the books, they didn't just use frog DNA. They used a lot of other different kinds of DNA
Okay.
depending on what they needed.
Okay.
With frog DNA, it appears that they used a specific type of frog that has been extremely well studied, particularly in embryo, because they were having problems with those species in their embryological development.
Okay.
So, using the frog DNA to repair the gaps there made it easier to observe the embryos and
Okay.
correct mistakes.
Okay.
It just had the side effect of letting them change sex.
Yeah.
And actually, the T Rex had frog DNA, if I recall. So,
I thought they all had frog DNA in them. Or was it just that one?
not in the book. In the
Okay.
movie, I think they all do, but I think the same explanation kind of applies. Like, easier to observe in embryo because that's where a lot of the issues are going to happen.
That yeah, I understand. I understand that. Just I'm not genetic, but it's just that like everything. A lot of other animals are closer matches to their DNA than frogs were. I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, but
To be fair, though, I think like humans still share, what is it, 70 to 80% of their DNA with frogs?
true.
Like, in the details, they're quite different. But in the very broad strokes of like how the body is formed and structured, they're pretty
Yeah,
similar.
true. Uh,
It
it's
depends on what gaps you have to fill.
yeah, it's funny when I tell people that. It's funny when I tell people that goldfish are more related to us than they are the sharks. Like what? But they're both fishes.
Yeah, but sharks are elasmobranchs.
But anyways, forget that. We'll talk about that subject later time. Back to dinosaurs. They first were forming here on this page.
Sure. So we've been over how pterosaurs were, as far as we know, all quadrupedal. Dinosaurs, ancestrally, appear to have all been bipeds, at least as far as we know. Even the groups that famously later on became quadrupeds, like sauropods and most ornithischians, they were ancestrally bipeds. Um, they also had much shorter forelimbs than pterosaurs. Pterosaurs also had, all of them had really big heads. Like, this doesn't look right, but it is.
And somehow they were airborne.
Well,
Somehow that was a good flight model.
the reason they got airborne was because their bones were freaking paper. Like, even working, I've heard from people who work with their fossils today, their fossils, now made out of rock, weigh nothing. Like, it is terrifying. It's like having your entire skeleton made out of plastic straws. They are that light. Dinosaurs, on the other hand, had smaller heads, generally, and their bones were still hollow because, they're Ava metatarsalians, but they're stronger. They're much more reinforced because most dinosaurs were land animals. Um, Now, with birds, they go more towards the papery route, but that's much
That,
later than anything we're covering today.
yeah, we're still in the Triassic right now, I think.
Yes. And yeah, all pterosaurs, as far as we know, had big, leathery, just meaning covered in skin, wings.
I never
Also,
get. Oh, sorry.
yeah,
I know we're sticking they were still on the dinosaur side, but a lot of people pterodactyls and pterosaurs don't mean the same thing. They're clade within a clade, right?
correct. So pterosaurs are all of them. Pterodactyls or pterodactylids are a specific subset within pterosaurs. There are two main subsets. There are rhamphorhynchids, which most of them have the big long tail, like you see on Dimorphodon here. And then pterodactylids have short tails, very short tails. There are other differences, but those are the main ones.
Eh,
Um, yeah. And I think all of the rhamphorhynchids actually die out by, I want to say, either the late Jurassic or early Cretaceous, actually.
oh,
Um, but yeah, these are our main groups. And something I don't have noted here, but you can see on the models, or, well, models on the pictures, they're fuzzy. Now, we've known that pterosaurs have been fuzzy for a long time, and modern birds have feathers. But as we find more and more and more fossils of dinosaurs, it's become pretty clear that almost all of the major groups have similar fuzzy coverings at some point.
so kind of like downy stuff that baby birds have nowadays.
Kind of, in some cases, more simple, but yeah, they all have fuzzy, fluffy coverings at some point. We have this in tyrannosaurs, we have this in dromaeosaurs. I don't know if we have it in sauropods, but I wouldn't be surprised. And we have it, more importantly, in ornithischians, which we'll get to in a minute. Now, we have this feature in two very distinct groups. And it's a feature that appears to have only appeared maybe once. So it seems this may have been ancestral. And pterosaurs being fuzzy when we get that quality preservation really seems to lend credence to that.
Yeah.
Uh, so
And maybe
uh,
one day we'll
yeah,
go the detail on that side.
yeah, but they are fuzzy and fluffy and feathery. They are
And
feathers.
cuddly.
Honestly, yeah. But diving more into the dinosaurs, there are two
We're,
main groups of dinosaurs.
we're skipping right past the dinoforms.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of confusing stuff that is currently under active study.
uh, come back to that later then once we know more.
Yeah. Once you're in Dinosauria, though, there are two major groups. There are the Saurischians and the Ornithischians. Now, those names translate to lizard hipped and bird hipped, but the weird thing is the lizard hipped hips don't really look like lizards, and the bird hipped dinosaurs do not give rise to birds.
Yeah, yeah. That was one thing that always confused me. So, like, the birds came from the lizard hip side.
Yes. Uh the the look of the hips is convergent. Because we have very basal birds like Archaeopteryx or Anchiornis, which still have a definitively Saurischian hip. But as we go far forward in time, we have more derived birds. We see the transition towards a modern bird like hip.
Now, I bring this up, but it was disproven recently, I guess, or not enough evidence. But I think for one guy thought they were on different sides of the wrong side of the family tree, but it proved out they weren't.
There was another tree proposed a few years ago, yeah. That does not seem to have held up to further scrutiny.
Uh,
Um, these might not be the absolute correct trees, but as far as we know, with all the evidence we have, and at least our modern knowledge of phylogenetics,
yeah,
this is as close as we can get with extinct animals.
yeah. Like I said, until we can get DNA from ancient animals, like this is the best I can do until we can say like until we can prove, oh, this was right, we were right, or like, wow, we were way off on this thing.
Yeah.
Because before I remember like when they found I, I think Jackson Wheat was on my channel one time talking about how for the longest time they thought big bats were on the primate side of the family tree.
Yes. But now it turns out no. In fact, if I recall, DNA evidence places them. I think their closest relatives are perissodactyls. So stuff like horses, tapirs, and rhinos.
Yeah, and I don't know the big deal or not. They found out that whales were closely related to hippos.
Yes, they are even-toed ungulates, as it turns out.
Yeah,
But apparently we're ancestrally carnivorous. So just imagine a little wolf otter with hooves
jeez.
chasing you down the beach.
I mean, hippos are scary enough as it is. Imagine if they were meat eaters more than they
Oh,
already
well,
are.
they will eat meat when they have the chance.
True.
They're opportunistic omnivores. But, I mean, to be fair, almost every herbivore is. But hippos seem to do it a lot.
All right, so at least right here on this thing,
Mhm.
there's only two big groups of Saurassians, but like a few big groups of Ornithians.
Yes. So, Saurischia is simpler than Ornithischia. There are two main groups, and everything can be neatly sorted into either of them after a certain point. Asterisk there because, like I said before, the farther you go back in time, the more similar things appear. And I think Eoraptor is a good example. It is a tiny, tiny dinosaur from the Middle Triassic. It has gone back and forth a lot if it's a theropod or a sauropodomorph. I think it is currently sitting in sauropodomorphs, but it's so basal, it's really hard to tell.
So this is before they started going back to four-legged mode on that side.
Yes. Yep. At this point, all of these are bipeds, as far as we know. The theropods, that's like your T Rex, your Allosaurus, your dromaeosaurs, and your birds. They stay bipedal for their entire evolution, as far as we know. They are the generally, actually, they are the main ape. They are the apex carnivores for on land for the entire Mesozoic after the Triassic ends. They start off small and scrappy, and they have to deal with the big crocodilians in the Triassic, but then those die out and the dinosaurs take over. But the sauropods are where things get really big. And again, they start off bipeds and they stay that way for a while into the early Jurassic. We have these massive, like 2 or 3 ton animals, and eventually they get so heavy they just need to become quadrupedal,
Yeah, I mentioned
and
this.
their hands get really weird.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but the books I had from a long time ago, they thought the sauropods had to survive in rivers and stuff. They're so big for until they found out they weren't.
Yeah, that was an idea for a long time. Um, we do know they could swim, but no, they were land living animals. Um, actually, we do have swimming traces from sauropods. Uh, they're pretty neat, but their anatomy gets really weird later on because they are bipedal animals that are forced on 4 legs. Like they all but lose their fingers, and in the latest sauropods, they are walking on their metacarpals.
Okay, so are we still in the Triassic at this point?
Yes,
So,
we're not there yet. I'm just saying that's where they end up.
uh, Rofa, but so I'm just trying for time frame. So right now we're still on Pangea. The continents haven't split up yet. I think at this point.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. I'll try to stick more to the time we're currently in. They are larger plant eaters. They're not true giants, but they are bigger than all other groups of dinosaurs. And then on the other side, we have the ornithischians. Now, they are complicated, especially at the beginning,
Yeah.
because some groups remain almost unchanged until the end of the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Other groups go freaking wild.
It's funny. I did not until more recently when I saw Aaron Ross thing series that I did not know that Stegosauruses and Ankylosaurus were that closely related to each other.
Yeah. Um, yeah, they're the first major group, the Thyreophorans. These dinosaurs, at this point in time, a lot of them are smaller and, well, at least shorter and squatter than a lot of their relatives. The earliest ones we have are already covered in osteoderms. Like, they evolved that really quickly. They are spiky little guys that are still running around on 2 legs, just running all over the place. Um, then we have the Thessalosauриds, which are also armored, but I don't know. I forget how long they last. I don't know if they last all the way to the end, like the Thyreophorans. Then we have the Hypsilophodonts, which are quick, agile dinosaurs that run everywhere and at one point were thought to be tree climbers, but that does not seem to have held up. Yeah, they're quick and nimble, and they are a widespread, very successful family. Diverging after them, we have the Marginocephalians. Now, these guys, well, actually, they don't appear at this point. So actually, we don't have to talk about them if you don't want to. They derive in the mid to late Jurassic, I think.
You can talk about basic stuff if you want to.
All right. Um, the Marginocephalians, when they appear, they look a lot like a basal ornithischian, except they have head ornamentation. So they often have spikes or a little frill near the back of the head. Um, Now, all of the ornithischians have beaks, but in the Marginocephalians, they are very prominent and choppy, like they are sharp. One of the earliest ones we have is Psittacosaurus. It is a little bipedal thing with horns on its face and a little beak, and it has a comb of bristles running down the midline of the tail, which are appear to be just simple feathers. And we have hundreds, if not thousands, of them. Like they were super common. And some of them are so well preserved, we know their original colors. Which that's something I absolutely
Yeah,
love.
yeah, I love that we know they're in colors now. Because for the longest time, all these dinosaurs were all gray, in the things.
Yeah.
In books and stuff and movies, they're all gray, all gray skulls. Now we know they had colors.
Yep. They had colors. They appear to have been social, at least as babies. Actually, the weird thing is, I if I recall correctly, the babies appear to have been quadrupedal, but the adults were bipeds.
Okay, time to share the screen.
Yeah. So yeah, here's Psittacosaurus. And here is one of the best preserved skeletons. That is original color. Like, that is actually remnants of the original color of this animal,
Nice.
which is just absolutely mind blowing. They This species at least appears to have had like a pale brown underbelly, a darker brown, top of its body. You can even see the little quills over here on the tail. The image kind of cuts off, but you can see them going up like that. Like it is an absolutely gorgeous animal, and I'm so happy we found them. And also just this adorable little thing. There's a lot of really cute art. They they are. I'm not going to say they're my favorite dinosaur, but they are definitely up there.
All right, so and finally we're up to the the ornithopods.
Yes. Now these do appear in the Jurassic. Again, not in the Triassic, but fairly early they appear. And they don't change very much. The earliest One of the earliest ones we have is Camptosaurus slash Dryosaurus, I think. And those body types stay all the way to the end. They are very, very successful, arguably, possibly the most successful of the non avian dinosaurs, which is fascinating.
Uh, so I mean, obviously, exceptions could be made, but of all of these, as far as I know, only one of these became mostly carnivores. The rest of these are mostly herbivores.
Um, I believe all of the ornithischians. Oh, I misspelled ornithischia. Oops. Uh, Anyway, as far as I know, all the ornithischians are
Well, I
herbivorous.
meant all of them together, the whole both clades.
Oh, yes, the theropods.
Unless there's some meat-eating sauropodomorphs that we don't know about yet.
I So, like I said earlier, most herbivores will eat
Yeah.
meat if they find it, but I don't think they were actively hunting much. Um, Although apparently there is some arguments that ceratopsians may have munched on meat more often, but I don't know all the data on that. But anyway, let's get back to some pictures.
All right.
So
On
here
this
are some
side,
examples.
on this side of the family tree.
Yep, some early saurischians. Here we have Coelophysis boweri, a theropod, and Plateosaurus trosingensis, a sauropodomorph. And again, both of them are bipedal. Leandingosaurus paradoxus. I don't know that tax off the top of my head.
So I can see on here.
Oh, oh, it's a possibly amphibious ankylosaurid with that appears to have eaten fish. Well, I stand corrected, Bree. Thank you for sharing that. Oh wow, it looks like a turtle. That is weird. I'd never heard of this little guy before.
Learn something new today.
Yeah. Huh. Oh yeah, and thinking about it. Um well no, that's a theropod, but there's never mind. That's a theropod. Something else I was thinking of, but yeah, that's neat. Huh. Thank you for sharing that, Bree.
So on this picture, we can see the theropod side starting to look more like birds, and the sauropod side is starting to become a little top heavy ish a bit.
Yes. So this is by I Draws Dinosaurs on Twitter. This is a modern reimagining of the Coelophysis from Walking with Dinosaurs, which I've always I've always been a sucker for their color pattern. Just they look so pretty and cute in the episode. I love them. um, they just didn't have any feathers until now. Um, this is the group that has the most evidence for feathers, the earliest, as far as I know, in all of Dinosauria. So they were almost certainly covered in a coat of feathers. Whether they were more complex or more basic, probably more basic.
Yeah. So, but is it all the dinosaurs that got more feather like, or just or is it just the theropods that started becoming more like modern
So it
feathers?
appears that all dinosaurs started a little feathery, or at least most of them appear to have started feathery. Later on, some groups lost most, if not all, of the feathers. But theropods appear to have mostly kept the featheriness all the way till the end. It's very likely that baby T Rex would have been born with fluffy coats of feathers.
And by the end, you mean in current times?
Well, yeah, like name a featherless bird. They're they're very useful for thermoregulation and display and a lot of other things. They're very useful. It's like almost all mammals have hair. Even actually, I think all mammals have hair. Even elephants, they're just much more sparse.
Yeah, like we had this like for us, we had the same amount of hair as all the apes do. Ours is just a little bit thinner than the rest of them.
Yeah, much thinner and for most of the body much shorter. Yeah. So the Plateosaurus here, if you zoomed in far enough, you'd probably see a few little quills. But most of the body was probably lacking in feathers because, based on at least data from later sauropods, they had really high metabolisms, even the huge ones. Um, like there are sauropods from the late Jurassic. Yeah, cetaceans have mustaches. Um, there are sauropods from the late Jurassic that so we can look at the isotopes in an animal's teeth or bones, uh, and those isotopes can tell us like kind of what it ate, where it lived, and what its body temperature was.
Uh, Real fast, speaking of sauropods,
Yes.
a lot of people talk about how giraffes have it bad with that one nerve going around the heart and stuff, up to their neck and stuff. Sauropods probably had a lot worse. The way
Yeah.
longer neck than giraffes had. That
Unless they had some mechanism to subvert it, the recurrent laryngeal nerve in sauropods, some of them probably would have stretched over 100 feet, which is nuts. Uh, but anyway, late Jurassic sauropods, we have temperature estimates for, and most of them cluster in the mid to high 90s. Like, they are warm blooded and they need to shed that heat. So they probably had very, very little feathers. But at this point, again, they're still bipeds. Like, Plateosaurus is an obligate biped. It can't move around on four legs. Then over here, we have early ornithischians. So down here, we have Scutellosaurus representing the Thyreophorans. And then we have Eocursor and Heterodontosaurus, basically showing what most of the other ornithischians would have been like at this time. And again, they're fluffy. They are fluffy, they are feathery, and, well, except in the case of the Thyreophorans, they seem to have just tossed the feathers out in exchange for armor. um, but yeah, these are what all of these look like at this time. They are small, and they actually might have been omnivores, especially in the case of Heterodontosaurus up here.
yeah.
Like, its teeth are gnarly.
Yeah, this is the time between the two big extinctions. They had just their ancestors had just survived the Permian, and now they're about to go into the Triassic extinction.
Yeah. Something that all early dinosaurs share is they are quick moving, hot blooded, generalist survivalists. Like, it would be hard for an extinction event to kill these things. It's not until later that they get more specialized that they get more sensitive to that sort of thing. And yeah, kind of small beginnings. And big credit to Sterling Nesbitt here. He's a paleontologist who did a fabulous family tree of archosaurs back in 2011.
As always, check these things if you want more information that we haven't supplied yet.
Of course, always check the sources.
now, at the Jurassic when the Jurassic happened, and this continent started to split apart. Do we know which dinosaurs were on the Gowanda side and what dinosaurs were on the
Laurasia and Gondwana.
Yeah, what side? Who went on which side of the continents?
As far as I know, there were representatives from every group
Okay.
everywhere. Um, we we don't have as much Triassic rock as we would like, but everywhere we hunt in the Triassic, we find representatives of almost, if not all, of these groups.
Okay. So I didn't
As
know
yeah.
if some speciation happened because the continent split apart and they couldn't breed each, they couldn't get together
Oh,
anymore.
speciation definitely happened. There were definitely different populations that adapted to different environments. But just due to how the land was all connected, the groups in general could spread very easily. So they could spread out and diversify. And then when the continents split, they isolated and specialized even more to their local environments. With that said, it appears that the Atlantic Ocean, when it was still fresh, may have dried up on occasion, allowing interchange between Europe, Africa, and the Americas, at least North America.
Uh,
Because later on we have basically the same animals in North America as we do in Africa. Just as an example.
because I would be wrong because I heard during later in the years like Tyrannosauruses were mainly a North American animal.
Tyrannosaurs. So this is much later on.
Uh,
Um, the earliest ones we have appear to be from Asia.
okay.
Um, and then they crossed over to North America and Europe. I don't think we have any evidence of tyrannosaurids from southern continents. I could be wrong on that. There might be some isolated material, but there's none that I know of.
Okay.
But that was much later. The continents were much more separated and much further defined. Um,
Oh, another thing about dinosaurs uh, uh, that a lot of people, me included, a lot of people didn't thought each of these things were a species, but a lot of these things are a whole clade in itself. Like Tyrannosaurus isn't a species; it's a whole family or order or whatever.
Tyrannosaurus is a genus.
Yeah.
Tyrannosaurids are a group within the. I don't know if it's a family. They are within Tyrannosauroids.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
But like I said, yeah, it's a lot more inclusive than a lot of people think.
The group Tyrannosauroids. Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of
I mean,
a lot of dinosaur groups.
okay. Yeah, like we have these big representatives of different groups, but a lot of them were way more diverse than most people know about.
And none of them are on the ark.
Nope. And none of them were killed in a global flood. Oh, is there anything else you want to go over?
Not today. I think that's enough for the basics.
Sounds good. What
Now,
do you want to go into for the next episode?
what's say real fast? Now, for all of you who want to see more of this, we are going to be doing this on the first Saturday of every month.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to do a little more deep dive into this clade? Check us out next, and check us out in April. Now, as for next week, I think we should switch off a bit. As my guest host, I am going to let you pick the clade we focus on next time for episode 2.
Oh, okay. Hmm. I'm not sure. Maybe more into basal ornithischians, but I'll have to do a lot more research before then.
All right. Highest Bree says ranking the clades is so consistent among the ranks due to generation variability and cycle times.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of complications. A lot.
Yeah, sometimes like going from the old 7 layer system to the new clade system, you find out it's a lot more layers than you originally thought.
Yeah.
It ain't just kindly please order fries, give me some. That was taught in school. That th- little rhyme I learned to remember the different layers of the taxonomy. A lot more. But anyways, all right. You want to advertise anything coming up on your channel?
Uh, Nothing right now.
Like, don't you have a show every Monday?
Oh, but that yeah, that's fair. Uh, yeah, I do a stream every Monday talking about creationists misrepresenting science to make money. It's something that I really dislike.
Yeah,
If you want to check me out, channel name is just Doctor Dino.
yeah. I do wish I could watch more of it, but unfortunately, I work on Mondays and I catch as much as I can. It's just
It's okay. It's okay. Hey, work comes first. It's fine. And
yeah,
the streams stay up after. It's
true, true.
if you want, you can always listen after.
I, as for me, uh, next Saturday I will have Jillian and Maya on my channel, and we'll be going over the Emancipation Proclamation.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and it's also my 400th episode of Talking Time with Caffeine. So it's a big event both ways, a big topic, and a big celebration at the same time. 400 episodes talking about science, history, and whatever else we felt like talking about. So so check him out. Check out him out on Monday. Check me out next Saturday. All right, you have a catchphrase you say, closing catchphrase at all?
Uh, just have a good evening. Have a good day. Have a good one.
As I always say, never stop learning and enjoy the randomness. We'll see y'all next time.